Tim, we thought the story might be over with the Fosamax jaw fractures, where you had women that you were representing. We saw women across the country that were suffering from a necrotic jaw, where the jaw was virtually just disintegrating because of the use of Fosamax. Now the story has even gotten worse. How is this story? How could it possibly get worse?
Well, you think about it. The jaw is, of course, very important to every person who talks, breathes, eats. But how do we get around? We get around on our legs. Those legs are fueled by the femur. And now study after study after study has shown a remarkable, and not just a slight, but a remarkable, huge increase in relative risk for these strange, non-traumatic femur fractures in American women.
Okay, let's start from the beginning. Why do people take Fosamax to begin with? Why is primarily women taking Fosamax? Why are they taking it?
Primarily postmenopausal women who hope to either treat the osteoporosis they have or prevent osteoporosis from occurring in the first place. And in fact, most patients who are on it do not even have a disease. They are prescribed it prophylactically at the urging of Merck to prevent you from developing a disease, and that disease is osteoporosis.
In other words, it's another one of Merck's cash cow scams where they create a need for a drug. They sell the drug like you really need it. You really don't need it. And all of a sudden they're making billions of dollars by pimping and scamming the American consumer. Now, in this case, the case starts off with Fosamax only causing these necrotic jaws, where the jaw has to be completely replaced because the bone rots right out of the mouth. Now, with the femur case, there's a term I'm seeing. It's called low energy fractures that they're developing in the femur. It sounds bad.
Yeah, the typical scenario is a 60-year-old woman standing at a kitchen counter making cookies or making dinner for her husband and herself, of course, and she will hear a strange sound, almost like a creaking sound. Her leg will hurt, like she's got a muscle pain, and then she will hear a loud pop, and the next thing she knows, she's on the floor in excruciating pain. That loud pop is her femur snapping. She has just lost the femur support, and she's fallen to the floor, and now she faces a life of surgeries, of intense rehab, about a month of hospitalization, all because she was taking a drug for too long that Merck didn't tell her physicians take these folks off of it after a few years of use.
Okay, isn't this another situation where the FDA, and by the way, let me just point out, when Obama came in the office, we all thought, well, okay, he's going to clean up the FDA. We're going to change all of this. We're going to change all of this process where industry is working right within the realm of the FDA, and FDA is working right within the realm of industry, where you have this revolving door that Obama was going to clean that up. We started hearing talks like he was going to clean it up. Nothing has changed. It's the same bunch of hacks running the FDA, isn't it?
It is, and the sad thing is, what we've seen is, and through the work I've done on the jaw litigation, I discovered all this, and we filed the first case over 3 years ago. But what we have seen is, the FDA told Merck in 1998, when the FDA looked at their pivotal clinical trials, yes, your drug works to prevent fractures, but only in osteoporotic women. It does not help osteopenic women. That is the women who do not have it. And even for those women who are osteoporotic, Pap, after 3 years of use, the FDA determined that the numbers flip. In other words, you were safer if you were in the placebo group than if you were in the Fosamax group. So the FDA and Merck have known since 1998 that after about 3 years of use, you're actually experiencing a trend toward an increased risk of femur fracture.
Okay, and so now we have the FDA. They've watched women literally have their jaws rot away from their mouth from using Fosamax, where they actually have to come in and build a prosthetic jaw. They know about that. They know that these studies are coming out showing that there's this thing called a low-energy fracture that's caused by Fosamax. And by the way, in women that shouldn't even be taking the drug at all, okay? And still the FDA is sitting on their hands, right? I mean, is that kind of how it looks?
Well, here's the inside peek on how it's operated. About a year and a few months ago, the second major study showing a huge increased risk came out. And about that same time, Diane Sawyer on ABC World News Tonight ran a major multi-part story on these fracture risks. The FDA immediately got into CYA mode and began essentially trashing the Diane Sawyer story. But what the FDA did was punted to an industry group called the American Society of Bone and Mineral Research. Largely, it's entirely funded by the industry.
Yeah.
The panel was entirely comprised of speakers and researchers, all of whom have financial ties to the industry. But you know what happened, Pap? Even that group, a few months later, after they looked at the science and after they looked at it, said, you know what? There's something going on here. Merck, you need to warn, because you don't tell doctors anything. You need to warn about the risk of these fractures, and you need to say something about how long patients should actually be on it, because right now you say nothing. And so for the first time, the FDA said, yeah, maybe you ought to do that. And that was in response to a reactive defensive posture to what Diane Sawyer did on the ABC World News
and
Tonight.
She simply looked at the facts, told the truth, interviewed people who just suffered, God knows how badly they suffered from Fosamax. Merck has known about this suffering for years. They've covered up the truth about how bad the risks really are. They've covered up the fact that there's a causal relationship between their drug and this suffering. And it's the same story. Isn't it, Tim? It's the same story to where if you're taking a drug that you saw on television because some cat comes on TV and tells you you're going to feel better, it's going to make your life better, you're not going to be angry, you're going to be able to run faster, stay awake longer, have more energy, whatever the hell it is, we know this. You cannot trust it. It has to be a deal where you independently check out as much as you can before you take that drug. I mean, do you agree? I mean, you can't even trust your doctor because the doctor doesn't know about the problems.
Oh, that's correct. The doctor really doesn't know what lies beneath the label. And when Merck first went on the air advertising Fosamax in the mid to late 90s, the slogan was Fosamax for life, inferring two things. Hey, you know, this will renew your life, postmenopausal women, and take it for life.
Yeah, because they make more money if they take it for life
Right.
rather than the 2 years that they ought to be taking.
And now we know it's a prison sentence because these folks who have Fosamax in their bodies, it has a half-life, Pap, of over 11 years. You could stop taking the drug today, and years down the road, you are still at risk for these femur fractures. So that's the irony of the term Fosamax for life.
So what ends up happening is the doctors take all the risk because they prescribe it, and they've been lied to by Merck. The clients the patients take all the risk because the doctor tells them everything's okay. They can go online, and what I even see is Merck doing with this drug is they're buying up all the hits to where the first thing you come to is how great Merck is, how great Fosamax is, and the story is not really told about what the real truth is, about how dangerous this damn drug is.
You know, Pap, here's the truth about Fosamax. It's a good drug for a limited period of time and only for a limited population of women. And it's that saying that we say down here that pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. Merck's not happy with that market. It grew from an $800 million market with that limited population for the limited period of time to this broader market where it grew to nearly $4 billion a year, pushing it to women who don't need it and pushing it to those women who do need it for way too long.
Tim O'Brien, you are one of America's finest consumer lawyers. Go after them, man. Do not give them a break.